Hi, I'm Greg Murphy and this is Nathan Wallis, neuroscience educator. And in this episode, we're talking about the impacts of stress on driving. Great to see you, Nathan.
Kia ora, Greg.
We are moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Everything these days, just 1,000,000 miles an hour, dealing with so many things in such short spaces of time, and which creates stress, right? It's something that we're all having to deal with. Everyone's dealing with differently, and you know, for a truck driver, you know, having to do this job and deal with the pressures of it all, and then be living a life at the same time, and bringing to work all these you know, things that are going on, and then having to have that responsibility. That, you know, stress is enormous. It has such a effect on things. How does it work with the brain?
Yeah, it's fascinating stress, isn't it? Because we divide it into tolerable stress and toxic stress. Because some tolerable stress actually can just serve to motivate you to, a little bit of stress can actually engage that frontal cortex, that brain number 4. Because you're like, oh, I need to be more alert now. So that, you know, so that we would call tolerable stress. That's, you know, stress that can help us. Toxic stress is more that stuff where we're not so much aware that we're taking on 4 times as much, that the pace of the world has moved at such a, you know, rapid pace, that we're becoming stressed and not realising how stressed we are. And so our decision making and our judgment, our good judgment and stuff is falling down because of the scales. So yeah, we're set up for toxic stress now. You know, a lack of sleep and managing the kids and managing work, and and that's without COVID. You know, then you have an environment like COVID. Unpredictability is one of the biggest stresses you can get, being in an unpredictable environment. So COVID's made everyone's life pretty unpredictable. So yeah, I think drivers, along with everybody else, are in danger of getting into that toxic stress type where you're running on empty.
And so let's just put that into context with the, you know, the brain and how that works.
Really, a stress you can sort of perceive as like it's a competition between brain 1 and brain 4. So your survival brain, your brainstem, you know, down the base, actually put them on a set of scales. Just think brain 1 is on one side of the scales and brain 4 is on the other side of the scales. So brain 4 is that frontal cortex, the one that's going to, you know, keep us in control and knows what we're doing and keep us safe. They work like they're on a set of scales. So really, the more stressed you are, the more access you've got to all of that higher intelligence and that ability to keep things in control. So when you're not stressed, basically brain number 1's in charge. So if it's stressed and it's highlighted and activated, then brain number 4 starts to go offline just because of the scales. It's just a biological principle. That's why things like mindfulness are so big, you know, topics that people talk about today, because that's essentially, mindfulness is calming that brainstem down, that survival brain, so you can get access to your full cortex. So you can think of consequences, you can have empathy for other people, you can have all of your higher intelligence there ready to pick up on novel things happening on the road. So yeah, stress in any context is really, that's what's happening biologically in the brain. For driving, that just means that the more stressed you are, regardless of what that stress is, whether it's a fight with your wife, whether it's, in lots of ways the brain just perceives stress as stress. You know, this brainstem is aroused, and when that brainstem is aroused, then you're going to lose access to that part of the brain number 4, that's going to keep you safe on the road and be quick responding.
So it's massively difficult to manage in many cases for people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you can't just sort of have a system that says you're supposed to do that. You know, you can give all the shoulds and supposed to's you like to the frontal cortex. It doesn't come online until you calm down that brain number 1. So stress is I would guess that stress is a major cause of, you know, a lot of accidents and a lot of consequences, because brain number 4 is the one that's going to keep you safe. And if you're stressed, it's not working properly. I mean, some of that's basic stuff like, you know, hydration.
Yeah.
If you're dehydrated, then your brain starts to shut down and the brain starts to get a bit more stressed. So it can be as simple as drinking water. You know, but that goes for sleep as well. Well, water, you know, the basics of diet, sleep, hydration.
So fatigue.
Yeah, fatigue, yep. But I mean, even stress, like I say, you know, they're arguing with your wife. I mean, that stress causes a brainstem arousal. That's your, you know.
And that's just normal everyday activities, things that happen in everyone in life, right?
So people often use ritual to get around that.
Right.
So, you know, just the actual ritual of getting up and into the truck and parking your sunglasses up there, and there's a little body ritual that your body remembers, and that might be a routine to help you click out of that and click into work mode. But if you don't consciously do that, then actually, you know, sitting in the truck for a long period of time could actually be what your brain thinks is the ideal time to be going over and over and over that fight with your wife to try and sort it out. So again, it always sort of comes back to your own rituals and routines, that you use your brain number 4 to have a little ritual that lets go of that stuff and says, right, I'm moving into this professional space. I mean, you must have had to do this as a racing car driver. You're like, okay, right, I'm at work now, like you said. I'm focused on this. Ritual tends to be the key of doing that. You know, that your brain associates that. You know, I remember living in Christchurch, I had a car stacker, car stackers, and you park in it and has to stack the cars. So the lights on my car, the mirrors on my car had to be folded in. So I knew that if I just leave it to me randomly remembering, I'll tuck the mirrors in, which I don't normally do, I would forget 1 in every 20 times. So that means 19 out of 20 times I was successful and I remembered. But 1 out of 20 times, I'm going to be parking, 50 times a month. So that means several times a month, I'm going to leave my mirrors out to get scratched by the car scraper. So to anchor it, I did it in a body ritualised way. I knew that I did the keys and turned off the car and pulled up the windows and ritualised it. It did it exactly the same order each day. So I know after 1 month of getting into the car and making myself do it in that order, it almost becomes like body memory to turn the wing mirrors in because it's automatic. Even if I'm stressed that day and that brain number 2 just remembers the sequence of get the keys, put the handbrake on. So I can use ritual in that way to help myself, but you've always got to engage that brain number 4 first, that frontal cortex, to get that pattern in place.
I mean, there was days I arrived at the racetrack and you didn't want to be there for all various reasons and all that kind of stuff. But I think ritual was definitely part of it, of moving, and then basically you've got to go and put all your gear on. Right? So you've got to go and put your fireproof underwear, you've got to put your socks, you've got to put your suit, you've got to put your boots, you've got to get all your, and you've got your gear, you've got to make sure you've got all your stuff, your helmet, all that kind of stuff. And then there's a process of getting in the car. So, and I think that definitely became automated, and that because you were going through that process, you ended up, and then you get in the car, and then they put seatbelts and all that. That was that ritual to remove those other thoughts that were going on in your head, and that was just sort of automatic.
And that is how
I just really haven't thought about that before, really, to be honest, which is strange because I've done it so many times. But it was an automatic release, I suppose, of that stuff. So
the brain does work like that ritual and routine. You see this right across. I encourage parents with their little kids. Sing them the same 3 songs just before they go to sleep. So when you take your kids to bed, do the bedtime stories and stuff, sing them the same 3 songs in the same order, and you actually end up like hypnotising the child. So like, my youngest daughter, the last song we sang every night was Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Now I just have to sing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star to where she just about passes out and falls asleep because no matter what time of the day it is, and she's an adult, but she recognises the effect it has because her brain associates so much hearing that song and then falling asleep. So if your brain associates getting it, taking the suit off, doing all that ritual you talked about, with then moving into this different state, it will do it automatically. But you kind of still need to consciously. I mean, sometimes they just work automatically for us, but usually you've got to engage that conscious thinking to know, this is what the ritual is doing. It is. I mean, it's like that's why I like dividing it up into the 4 brains, because there is this automatic behaviour coming from brain number 2, which is that automated work most of the time, but brain number 4 has got to be engaged to change that what is not automatic programming. It's not just automatic driving, or we would have, those carless drivers would be a whole lot simpler now if it was a predictable algorithm. It's not. It's almost like the carless drivers, the driverless cars. The driverless cars. They can reproduce brain number 2 if nothing novel happens.
Yes.
So we can put you on this set track that we know nothing novel. But you need brain number 4. We still need humans because you need that brain number 4.
And that's where when something out of the ordinary happens, it doesn't handle it. Yeah.
And that is really compromised if you're stressed. So because of the scales.
Wow.
So
that makes so much sense.
And in class and at a teaching setting, we might do mindfulness exercise of just controlled breathing to calm your brainstem down. But in the driver context, again, that using that ritual, some form of how do you let go of that stress to come into this environment? Because you can do it. Humans change their frame really, really quickly. You know how you can be, as a parent, you can be telling off the kids and get quite angry and grouchy, and then, the postman comes to the door and you're like, oh, g'day, how are you? And you're instantly all lovely and friendly. You're a nutting out mess. A second ago, you can change your frame quite quickly. So we have the ability. We just need to ritualise it and be conscious of it. We do need to manage stress. I mean, especially as modern day, we've got more and more stresses all the time now.
More reasons for it.
The pace of the things go, I mean, I think you just watch old television shows and you see how slow the pace was when you're watching, that would not last today. We have 4 times as many scenes happening in a television show. So that half-hour show has 4 times as much happening as a half-hour show from the 1950s because our pace has gone so much faster. So that can seem like a good thing. We're getting more done, but it's all arousing that brainstem. The faster your pace is, the faster your internal engine,
where does it end?
the more aroused your brainstem is, the less access you've got to your cortex. So you do need to stop and centre yourself and get that brain number 4 online.
People look at what I do at racing cars, and it's on television and it's a sport that people love to watch and enjoy, would like to do, that kind of thing. For me, it was a job. It was still a job. For everyone, it's still a job. You have huge amount of stress and pressure to perform.
Yep.
So that's something you have to deal with every time you arrive at the racetrack. Every time you get in a race car, you're dealing with the pressures. It doesn't matter who you are, because there's expectation, right?
Yep.
You can be the best guy. So you're seen as the best guy, you put on this pedestal, he's the best, right? So you've got to stay the best.
Yeah.
You got to keep delivering that performance to maintain that what people perceive you as. You're struggling. You're in you're not able to perform the way that you're expected to perform. So the stress is there to try and up your game, get better, improve. You've got one of your kids is in hospital, broken a leg, and you're having to go to work. You're having to go and drive your race car. You're dealing with those thoughts. Everything's the same as everybody else. It's just a very different looking kind of job that is exposed to the world in a different way. So I mean, it's the same things that anyone else is dealing with. If we're talking about truck drivers and transport operators, that kind of stuff, people driving for their jobs. This all that stuff is really the same. The difference for me and for what we're doing is that we get in those race cars where we're all going in the same direction. We're all going around the same bit of racetrack. For 10, 20, 30, 50, 60, 100 laps or whatever it is. Right. And it's perceived as high risk.
I was going to say that we associate that with crashes and you're
fireballs
every single moment.
But it's I've never ever got in a race car and ever thought about what potentially could happen if I hit something or if I crash. I feel immensely safe because of the preparation around who's done all the work, the team, the car, the build, the fire suit, the helmet, the hands device, all that stuff.
I suppose we're not thinking of that immediately when the perceived risk is just seeing that fireball. I'm not thinking about all the safety gears.
But then we go and get in a car or in a truck or whatever, and we go on our roads here in New Zealand, and we're like, well, this is normal. This is every day. This is, there's no risk. It's not going to happen to me. It's far more dangerous out there on our roads any given day of the week, any given minute of the day that it is. And so it's what we've been told, what we've been shown. That
the brain perceives as stress. I mean, it's got its own perception, so we perceive that getting in the racing car is going to be a whole lot more dangerous.
Because you're doing 250 kilometres an hour.
Than driving to the... I mean, that comes up when you talk about people who are scared of flying and trying to get them to see that they actually pose more risk in the car drive to the airport than there ever was getting on the airplane. But of course, people are normalise that level of stress.
That's right.
And yet we are disproportionately scared of flying in a plane. Perceived stress is quite different from actual stress. But we all think we've got this ability to make this very rational assessment of risk. But that just highlights that actually our risk assessment is a bit faulty. It's coming through our perceptions.
Put me in a race car around a racetrack any given day at any speed versus driving on our roads. I know which one's more dangerous.
Which one you're actually more likely to get injured on. Statistically.